Welcome to the Manhwa World. The carriage wheels rattled steadily over the cobblestones, the rhythmic clip-clop of hooves marking their approach to the royal grounds. Inside the opulent cabin, the atmosphere was divided between breathless excitement and a heavy, suffocating silence. Wow! The young woman with silver hair pressed closer to the window, her eyes widening as the sprawling architecture came into view. I've never been to the Imperial Palace before. It's so beautiful. It must be lovely for you to see this scenery every day, Your Majesty. The Empress, seated across from her, maintained a stoic expression, though her gaze was distant. The younger woman turned from the window, her voice bright and innocent. It won't be long until I get to enjoy it as well once I move into the palace, right? I'm not sure, the Empress replied quietly, her voice devoid of warmth. The silver-haired woman tilted her head, noticing the lack of enthusiasm. Oh, you don't look too well, Your Majesty. Is it because of me? She clasped her hands together, feigning a look of distress. I really want to get along with you. The Empress grit her teeth, her internal thoughts a stark contrast to her composed exterior. This woman is my husband's mistress. Only a few days ago, the palace had been buzzing with a very different energy. In the servants' quarters, maids gossiped while attending to their duties. Your Majesty, I was just walking along yesterday, when a really handsome gentleman started talking to me. One maid, White-Eye, giggled to her companion. This is the Beastkin Empire. The other maid, Nightingale, replied with a knowing smile as she carried a tray. I could tell he was a leopard beastkin, and he was so handsome that my hair went poof and turned into feathers. Oh dear! What a sight that must have been! Nightingale laughed. It was common knowledge here. Beastkin are humans whose essence is more akin to that of animals. For the Empress, however, the reality of this empire was far more personal. Standing before her mirror as her maids brushed her long blonde hair, she reflected on the passage of time. Today marks the 5th year since I moved to the Beastkin Empire. I will only add a few accessories today for a classier look. She instructed her attendants. The maids were bustling with excitement. It's been so long since Her Majesty had breakfast with His Majesty, so we should make her look alluring, one chirped. We'll make her look so breathtaking that the Empress's brand appears on His Majesty's body. Betty! Another maid scolded sharply. The maid named Betty covered her mouth, her eyes wide with panic. Oh no! I'm sorry, Your Majesty! The Empress offered a gentle, forgiving smile, though her eyes remained sad. It's all right. You don't need to be so cautious about mentioning them. Brands mean nothing to me. She turned back to the mirror, her expression falling. I don't expect a brand to appear at this point anyway. Suddenly, the heavy double doors to her chambers burst open. A maid stood there, breathless and frantic. Your Majesty! What do we do? The room fell silent as the maid delivered the devastating news. Apparently, there is a woman who claims that His Majesty's brand has appeared on her. The journey to the dining hall felt like a funeral procession. When the Empress finally arrived, the scene before her confirmed her worst fears. The Emperor, a man with striking features and long silver hair, sat at the head of the table. The mistress, Titié, was seated opposite him. The Emperor didn't even look at his wife as he spoke. I heard that Titié came with you in your carriage. He paused, his gaze searching the room. Where is she? The Empress felt a sharp pang in her chest. Titié? He already has a nickname for her, I see. I would like for us to speak alone first, she requested, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. The Emperor signaled for the others to leave. All right. Once they were alone, the silence stretched thin between them. It has been a while since we have spoken. The Empress began, trying to bridge the chasm. Did you sleep well last night? The Emperor set down his teacup with a soft clink. They say those with your brand on their bodies give you a sense of peace and longing. He looked up, his expression unreadable. I thought it was all exaggerated, but it is actually true. It was soft and warm in her arms. The Empress felt the blood drain from her face. He has no qualms speaking about another woman to me. She forced a polite response. I am glad to hear it. She hesitated before asking the question that burned in her mind. Does this mean you have imprinted on her as well, Your Majesty? No, he answered simply, his eyes closing for a moment. You sound concerned, the Emperor observed, opening his eyes to look at her. Since she has your brand on her, I cannot help but be concerned about this, as your Empress, she replied, trying to frame her pain as duty. The Emperor's expression hardened. Is that all? Should there be more? The dismissal was clear. I shall get going then, he whispered. He turned and walked toward the door, pausing only to offer a formal farewell. May the sun of the Empire always shine brightly. As he stepped out of the hall, the heavy doors closing behind him, the facade finally cracked. A sob escaped her lips as she leaned against the wall, her heart shattering. Demios. Her mind drifted back, pulled by the currents of memory to a time when things were different. A starry night in a field of flowers. A massive white wolf lay in the grass, and a young girl laughed as it licked her cheek. Ahaha! It tickles! The wolf shimmered, its form shifting until a young boy with silver hair and red eyes sat before her. Did I scare you? He asked gently. No, you were amazing, the girl breathed, her eyes shining with admiration. The boy looked at her with an intensity that belied his age. You must be the one I imprint with, Sepia. I just know it. Imprint? The girl asked, confused. What's that? Yes, Beastkin have something called brands, you see, he explained earnestly. It's when the name of your destined mate appears on your body. The girl frowned. Stop lying! That's ridiculous. I swear it's true, he insisted. And beastkin who have those brands are destined to fall in love with their mate. The girl looked down at her hands. But I'm a human, not a beastkin like you. Your name won't appear on my body. The boy reached out, pulling her into a warm embrace. It's all right. Your name will appear on mine. He held her tight, his voice a vow against the night air. You're the only one for me. The memory shattered as the door to the Empress's parlor creaked open. The Empress sat in her chair, lost in the past, until the intruder's voice pulled her back to the cruel present. Destiny is quite fascinating, isn't it? Titié stood there, radiating a smug confidence. I'm all His Majesty talks about, right? That's what it's like to have a brand. The Empress stared at her, her expression numb. I see, Titié sighed dramatically, feigning exhaustion. I should get going. My brand seems to keep making me want to stay by His Majesty. She paused, a playful glint in her eyes. Oh, you haven't seen my brand yet, right, Your Majesty? Before the Empress could respond, Titié smiled and pulled down the neckline of her dress. What do you think? There, on the swell of her breast, was a name written in elegant, dark script. Demios. The Empress felt the world tilt. So that is Demios's brand. Something I do not have. She stared at the mark, a physical manifestation of her loss. I didn't think it would appear in this spot, but His Majesty seems quite happy about it. Titié leaned in close, invading the Empress's personal space. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, dripping with malice. So, don't you worry, Your Majesty. A smirk curled her lips as she delivered the final blow. I will warm His Majesty's bed from now on, in your place. What did she just say? The shock had paralyzed her then, but the memory shifted to the Emperor's reaction. I told you to be more careful, he had said, his voice tender not toward his wife, but toward the other woman. You are very precious to me. I apologize, Your Majesty, she had replied, feigning innocence. I must have tripped on my dress. The Emperor had turned his cold gaze to the Empress. Why were you two together? I came here with Her Majesty in her carriage. The woman lied smoothly. Oh my. I nearly missed you. I wanted to visit you in secret to surprise you. Why did you return, Your Majesty? The Empress had asked, her heart sinking. Did you have something else to discuss with me? Sepia, what I said before. Your Majesty, she had interrupted, unable to bear it. I am a little tired. Could we go and rest? All right. He had dismissed her easily. Let us head back now. The memory faded, leaving the Empress Sepia alone in the darkness of her chambers. I can't sleep. She sat up, the silence of the palace pressing in on her. Her hostile intentions are clear, Sepia thought. The wind whooshed outside, carrying the phantom echo of that voice. Don't you worry, Your Majesty. I will warm His Majesty's bed from now on. It has been a long time since I had to face such intense hostility. She whispered to the empty room. I have been through a lot to be where I am today. I can't give in now. I must continue to carry out my duty as the Empress. A flitter of movement caught her eye. Oh! She stepped out onto the balcony and then into the gardens, needing air, but the night air bit at her skin. It's so cold. She shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. How did I end up all the way here? Step, step. Her foot found purchase on the uneven ground, but then, slip. She stumbled, but strong hands caught her. You are, a deep voice murmured. Dressed too lightly. Sepia looked up, startled. Who is this man? The night air is cold, he said, steadying her. What are you doing here? She asked, her heart racing. She analyzed him instantly. Is he a carnivore or an herbivore? He gives off the energy of a vicious beast of some sort. I just got lost while taking a look around the palace, the stranger said, releasing her gently. Could you guide me back, my lady? All right, she thought. This man doesn't know that I am the Empress. He removed his heavy cloak and placed it around her shoulders. I do have to thank you for lending me your cloak, she said, pulling the fabric tight. As he moved, she noticed the marks on his skin. He has scars all over his body. Could he have just returned from the barbarian raid? Could you tell me your name? She asked. He looked at her with an amused glint in his eyes. Are you interested in me? Sepia stiffened, touching the jewel at her throat. You must know what this necklace means. Please do not jest. You are married, he observed, his tone shifting to respectful. I apologize. Please just call me Roxan. If you keep going this way, you will reach the gates, she instructed, pointing the path. Thank you for your help, madam, Roxan said, bowing slightly. You may return my cloak when we meet again. It won't be long. Sepia watched him walk away. It won't be long? Thank you. I will take my leave then, he called back softly. He must be a guest for the victory banquet, she concluded. When she finally returned to her chambers, her maid was in a panic. What were you this late at night? The maid cried, flapping her hands in distress. I was so worried, Your Majesty. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take such a long walk. The maid stopped, her eyes widening as she snatched the heavy fabric from Sepia's shoulders. Oh my, what is this cloak? It looks like it's for men. It's nothing, Sepia said quickly, turning away. I'm going to bed now, so you may leave. Are you all right, Your Majesty? The maid asked, concerned. I had some warm tea brewed for you because you said you couldn't sleep. Oh, I'm all right, Sepia assured her, taking a sip. I feel much better now. Lying in bed later, her thoughts drifted back to the stranger. Roxan. He was like the opposite of Demios. He seems to be from abroad based on his black hair and golden eyes. I'll return his cloak the next time I see him. She closed her eyes. Though I don't know if I'll ever see him again. The next encounter with her husband, Emperor Demios, was far less pleasant. They sat at a long dining table, the air thick with tension. Pardon me? Sepia asked, stunned by his accusation. I pushed Titié from behind? Demios cut his steak calmly. Are you really playing innocent? Don't tell me you are referring to her tripping over herself outside the drawing room. That was just an accident. I suggest you stop playing games. Demios interrupted, his voice cold. Especially when it comes to Titié and I. Sepia let out a sharp breath. Ha! I did not push Miss Titié. She clenched her hands in her lap. I suppose I can let it slide this time, since Titié did not get hurt, he said, the knife scraping against the plate, slice, slice. As I just told you, I had absolutely nothing to do with that fall. He set his silverware down. Do not make this a bigger issue than it is. If you continue to be so stubborn, I will have no choice but to interrogate you further. Do you have proof? Sepia demanded, her voice rising. Proof that I pushed her. Demios stared at her blankly. So you were interrogating me without any proof at all? She realized, the bitterness coating her tongue. You never had any interest in what I had to say. No need to get so emotional now. He dismissed. Titié has no reason to lie to me like that. Do you really believe she has no reason, Your Majesty? For Titié to frame me, the Empress, like that? Enough. Demios snapped. There is no need for further debate. Sepia stood up abruptly. For the last time, it wasn't me. She turned her back on him. Enjoy the rest of your meal. Please excuse me now. She slammed the door behind her, the sound echoing through the hall. Step, step. She walked furiously into the gardens, her heart pounding. Demios. What happened to the Demios I knew? She reached the lake, the water rippling in the moonlight. She sensed a presence and turned. So we meet again. It was him. Roxan. You are. Sepia stared. Only members of the imperial family have access to this area. How did you get in? Well, let's keep this a secret between us then, he said with a conspiratorial smile. I was walking and enjoying the fall colors when I ended up here. The wind rustled the trees. The red leaves are quite pretty over that way. He pointed. Have you seen them? Come with me then. I am sure they will be even more beautiful if we see them together. No, not yet, she said, hesitant. What are you trying to say? It's nice to share pretty sights with a friend, isn't it? He asked. Together? A friend? Yes, Roxan said, his expression softening. I have been out on the battlefield for so long that I do not know anyone here. It does get lonely. Since this is our second time running into each other, why don't we become friends? Sepia considered him. All right. It is an honor. If we are to become true friends, I should let him know who I am, she decided. I cannot hide my identity forever. Before that, shall we introduce each other? She suggested. Good point. He agreed. I am. Oh my, is that you, Your Majesty? A voice swooped in, shattering the moment. Sepia froze. I didn't expect to see you here, Titié said, appearing from the shadows with a faint smile. What brings you here? Sepia asked sharply. How did Titié get into the Empress's palace grounds? Roxan watched the newcomer carefully. Sepia thought, Roxan must know who I am now. His Majesty asked if I liked any place within the palace in particular. Titié explained, looking around. It seems that he wishes to gift them to me. So, I was looking around the palace grounds and ended up here. Titié gestured to the water. This lake is so pretty. If we mowed down all those reeds over there, we could plant camellias in the winter and cherry trees in the spring. That will not be possible, Sepia stated firmly. But why? Titié pouted. You seem to refuse everything I suggest since the first day we met, Your Majesty. Sepia felt a surge of indignation. I cannot believe she is not only after my position but the imperial family's land as well. Why has the goddess granted Demios' brand to someone like her? This area lies behind the Empress's palace and is reserved only for members of the imperial family, Sepia explained coldly. Really? I had no idea, Titié said, her eyes wide. Does that mean this person next to you is part of the imperial family as well? Roxan stepped forward. I am Her Majesty's friend. Oh, I did not know Her Majesty had friends, Titié exclaimed. What were the two of you doing here? We were taking a walk, Roxan answered simply. How nice, Titié beamed. I was just getting bored on my own. May I join you too? I'm afraid not, Roxan said, his voice smooth but firm. As I do not walk with strangers. Sepia felt a flash of admiration. This man knows how to turn someone down elegantly. Titié clapped her hands together, a sudden beam of realization lighting up her face. Oh, I see what's going on now. She looked from Roxan to Sepia with a malicious glint in her eyes. Your Majesty, you had a lover as well, he beamed at her, though the expression quickly shifted to a theatrical frown of relief. Phew! I'm so glad. I wouldn't want you to be lonely all by yourself, Your Majesty. He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Oh, don't worry about any rumors. I'm smart enough to know that you'd want to keep this a secret. The Empress stiffened, her expression cool and unamused. He is not my lover, but a friend, she stated flatly. You have just insulted him greatly. Oh my. In that case, I apologize. But, he glanced at her with skepticism, his eyes narrowing playfully. Are you really not lovers? The Empress felt a sudden chill run down her spine. That look, it was the same look she gave me in the drawing room when she showed me her brand. She acts innocent, but her eyes are full of deep hostility. A memory surfaced in her mind, a sharp, cutting remark she had heard recently. Just because you are a mistress does not mean everyone else has a lover. She realized with a jolt that this man must have been the one to say those words to Titié. I didn't expect him to be so firm, she thought, a newfound respect tempering her wariness. Oh, I apologize, she said aloud, her voice softening. She shuffled his feet, turning away awkwardly. Please excuse me, she staggered slightly, as if the weight of the conversation had just hit her. So you knew that she is His Majesty's mistress? The Empress's gaze drifted into the distance. Everyone in the capital has heard about her. The man's expression turned serious. His Majesty is very fond of her. If you attack Miss Titié like that, you may become the Emperor's target. The Empress looked at him, surprised by his candor. Are you worried about me? He jolted, seemingly caught off guard. No, She paused, then looked at him with a glimmer of hope. Then will you protect me from the Emperor? The man smiled, his demeanor relaxing. We are friends now, after all. All right. He glanced at the sky. It's getting late, so I should get going. He took a step back, offering her a warm, reassuring smile. I shall see you again at the victory banquet. With a soft whoosh of movement, he was gone, his footsteps fading into the night. The Empress stood alone in the garden, the silence returning. I didn't get the chance to thank him, she realized with a pang of regret. The following day, the palace was buzzing with hushed whispers. The Empress walked through the corridors, her presence usually enough to silence any conversation, but today the rumors were too volatile to contain. They still haven't been able to enter the capital? One lady whispered behind her fan. I don't understand why, but this seems like a terrible way to treat them. Another replied. What could he be thinking? The Empress stopped, her curiosity piqued. She turned to the group of noblewomen. What were you just discussing? The ladies jumped, bowing hastily. Oh, Your Majesty. They exchanged nervous glances before one spoke up. We were just talking about the barbarian raid forces. We heard that they still haven't been able to enter the capital. That cannot be true, the Empress said, her brow furrowing. I was told that they arrived over a month ago. Yes, but they haven't been allowed past the city gates and are camping outside the walls, the lady explained. His Majesty has ordered them to stand by. Stand by? The Empress felt a cold fury rising within her. I don't know why either, but I have never seen national heroes being treated like this. I see, the Empress said, her voice tight. Thank you for letting me know. As she walked away, her mind raced. Why did Demios order them to stay outside the capital's walls? The raid forces are the ones being celebrated at the upcoming victory banquet. I should ask him myself. Your Majesty! Madame Lemedy came rushing down the hall, breathless. Huff, huff. Madame Lemedy? His Majesty is waiting for you in the drawing room. The lady-in-waiting gasped. The Empress hurried to the drawing room. Inside, Emperor Demios stood with his back to her, looking out the window. The air in the room was thick with tension. He turned slowly. Your Majesty? Why have you not sat down? She remained standing, sensing his agitation. Is there something wrong? He looked so irritated. Could this be about what I just heard? Titié told me. Demios began, his voice low and dangerous. That you were at the lake with a man. The Empress blinked. Oh, I completely forgot about that. Of course Titié would have told him. Demios pressed, stepping closer. Did she cry again, saying that she was insulted? Who is this man you called to meet at the lake in private? Were you caught by Titié while having a secret rendezvous? Pardon? The Empress looked at him in disbelief. He and I are just friends. Ha! Demios scoffed, a cruel sneer twisting his lips. How ridiculous! A male and female just being friends. The Empress met his gaze evenly. It is possible for me, though it may not be for you. He glared at her, silence stretching between them. More importantly, Your Majesty, I was just coming to see you, she said, steering the conversation to the matter at hand. Why? Please rescind your order to have the barbarian raid forces stand by outside the capital gates. Demios' eyes flashed. You have no right to get involved. I do, she countered firmly. Just as they are your people, they are my people as well. Whatever hostility might be between you and Duke Leopold, they are still heroes who sacrificed everything for the Empire all these years. You must treat them with the respect they are due. Demios glared at her, his anger palpable. Suddenly, the air around him seemed to vibrate. His hair began to flutter wildly, even though all the windows were closed. The Empress watched, alarmed. This is a sign of beastification. Demios let out a frustrated sigh, the unnatural wind dying down. Do as you wish, then. He turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him with a deafening bang. Ha! The Empress let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, her knees trembling slightly. The door creaked open, and Madame Lemedy peered in, her face pale. Are you all right, Your Majesty? I am fine, the Empress assured her, regaining her composure. Madame Lemedy, please send a messenger to the east gates of the capital, and have him relay that they are allowed to enter the capital. I shall use my authority to provide them with accommodation as well. Yes, Your Majesty. Madame Lemedy hurried off to execute the order. The Empress walked to the window, watching the sun begin to set. Wait, how was Roxan able to enter the palace then? He said he was also part of the raid forces. At the outskirts of the capital, a roar of excitement erupted from the encampment. The gates have opened! Soldiers rushed forward, cheering. We finally got permission to enter the capital. Were the gates really open for us, Vice Captain? A soldier asked, eyes wide with disbelief. Yes, I guess the Emperor finally came to his senses, the Vice Captain replied with a grin. If you speak that way about the imperial family inside the capital, you will get arrested before the victory banquet. Another soldier warned, though he couldn't hide his own relief. They can try all they want. A red-headed soldier spat. We were in that living hell for 10 whole years. How dare they treat us so poorly? He looked around. Where is Lord Roxan, by the way? Well, oh, here he comes! The soldiers parted as a tall figure approached, his long dark coat sweeping the dusty ground. Where have you been, Lord Roxan? The red-headed soldier asked. The capital gates have just been opened. I know. I was just coming from there, Roxan said calmly. The Emperor finally gave us permission to enter the capital. I expected him to wait until the day of the victory banquet. Roxan shook his head. It wasn't the Emperor. Her Majesty the Empress is the one who allowed it, the soldiers murmured in surprise. That makes more sense. That high and mighty Emperor would never have let us in before the banquet. Roxan's expression darkened slightly. Don't worry, he will certainly come to regret it. Pardon? The soldier asked, confused. Roxan turned to face his troops, his voice ringing out with absolute authority. As the commander of the raid forces, I order you, return to the capital. A cheer went up from the men, their voices echoing into the twilight. The day of the victory banquet arrived, bathing the palace in golden light. His Majesty and Her Majesty have arrived, the announcer bellowed. The heavy doors swung open, and the Empress walked in beside Demios. She could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes upon them. Everyone is looking at us, she thought, keeping her head held high. This is our first official appearance since Demios took in a mistress. I'm sure everyone wants to know how our relationship has changed since. Her gaze swept across the room and landed on a woman sitting prominently near the front. Titié. I knew Demios would give Titié special treatment, the Empress thought, a bitter taste in her mouth. But I never expected him to give her a seat of honor, reserved for members of the imperial family. Calm down, she told herself silently. I cannot show how much this affects me in front of all these people. Suddenly, the chatter in the hall died down as the announcer's voice boomed once more. The hero of this victory banquet, the commander of the raid forces, Duke Claude Leopold has arrived! A hush fell over the crowd as the doors opened again. A man stepped through, dressed in a pristine military uniform, his silver hair catching the light. He walked with a confident, powerful stride. The Empress's eyes widened in shock, her breath catching in her throat as she recognized the face of the man she had befriended in the garden. Roxan? Roxan was Duke Leopold? The realization struck her with the force of a physical blow. She stared at the man kneeling before the throne, her mind racing. But Duke Leopold's first name is Claude. Was he trying to hide the fact that he was the Duke? The man raised his head, his golden eyes piercing and confident. I, Claude Leopold, have returned after defeating the barbarians. He continued his report, his voice echoing through the grand hall. We intend to keep searching for more magic stone mines. We have currently discovered 6 mines within the barbarian lands, and are exploring the areas that have not yet been mapped out. A murmur rippled through the court. Just 1 mine brings in an astronomical amount of money. The Emperor Demios mused aloud, leaning back in his throne. But 6? That is quite the achievement. That's amazing! As expected from Duke Leopold, the courtiers whispered amongst themselves. The Emperor's smile was thin, barely reaching his eyes. You did well. I applaud you for your achievements, Duke. He gestured lazily. What do you wish for as a reward? The court fell silent, anticipation hanging thick in the air. I'm sure he'll ask for the rights to the barbarian lands. A noble whispered. He might ask for the lands in the west, since they are so valuable. Another speculated. Claude Leopold met the Emperor's gaze without flinching. I would like a blessing from Her Majesty. The request landed with a heavy silence. The Empress's eyes widened. A blessing from me? Ha! The Emperor scoffed, a cruel edge to his laugh. You should ask the High Priest for such things instead. But Claude did not waver. The ancient laws were clear. The maiden with the Star of Ishtar is the saint of the empire. In other words, she has the right to bestow blessings. She was the Star of Ishtar, the maiden who would lead the man she marries to revive the glory of the Beastkin Empire. I was chosen by a priest to be the Star of Ishtar, which is why Demios proposed to me, she thought bitterly. She glanced at the kneeling Duke. It's also why Roxan wants a blessing from me now. She stood, her resolve hardening. I shall do so, she commanded softly. As the Duke stood towering over her, she felt a strange flutter in her chest. I've never blessed anyone, but I feel as though I can do it for Roxan. She stepped forward, placing her hand gently on his arm. A soft light emanated from her touch. As the Star of Ishtar, I bestow my blessing upon you, Duke Leopold. The ritual complete, she hesitated, then spoke closer to him. Next, I have to congratulate him. Claude looked at her, his expression softening into something warmer, something vulnerable. Yes. I have been out on the battlefield for so long that I do not know anyone here. It does get lonely. He smiled, a genuine, charming expression. Since this is our second time running into each other, why don't we become friends? She stared at him, taken aback by his candor. May you break free from loneliness and find your place in life, he whispered. He lifted her hand, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. Glory to the Beastkin Empire. Her face flushed. It's hot. No, the Master of Ceremonies announced, his voice booming. His Majesty and Her Majesty will have the first dance, and commence this ball. Music swelled, filling the ballroom. The Emperor took her hand, pulling her onto the floor. As they began to move, his grip was firm, possessive. Is he here? He whispered, his voice low and dangerous. Pardon? She asked, confused. Your lover, I mean, he sneered. She missed a step. Just as I told you before, I have not taken a lover. Well, Demios spun her around, his smile not reaching his cold eyes. I do not mind you enjoying yourself, as long as it is not serious. But stay away from Duke Leopold, she frowned. Why should I? What? The Emperor stopped, his eyes narrowing. "You have no right to interfere with whatever connections I make," she stated firmly, pulling away from him. "Please excuse me. Your Majesty, is there a problem?" he called after her as she rushed away. As she reached the edge of the dance floor, Titié appeared, her face a mask of concern. "You look unwell." "It's nothing," the Empress replied curtly. "Shall we?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Titié replied, following her. The gossip began almost immediately as the Empress retreated. The noblewomen fluttered their fans, their eyes darting between the Emperor and the Duke. "Is that why he likes her?" one whispered. "Because she makes him smile, unlike me?" "Hello, Lady Titié," a voice called out, interrupting the whispers. Titié turned, beaming a radiant, practiced smile. "I cannot tell you how nice it is to meet you. I was looking forward to meeting you as well. Everyone is so eager to gain her favor." A cynical voice muttered in the background. "I missed my debutante because I wasn't very healthy at the time," Titié explained to her adoring audience, pressing a hand to her chest. "But thank you all for such a warm welcome. There you are, our dear Titié," her parents cooed, pushing through the crowd. "Our lovely daughter." "Oh, father, mother," Titié greeted them. From the shadows, the Empress watched. "Those small-town nobles are using Titié to act as if they are of higher status," she thought. "Ha! You're right. They took her in when she was already fully grown, but they act like they're her birth parents." The conversation amongst the ladies shifted back to the men. "Oh, anyway, Duke Leopoldo. He was far more handsome than I had ever imagined. I always thought His Majesty was the most perfect male specimen in the Empire." Another lady sighed, turning to look at Demios. "But I find the Duke more attractive. His Majesty is, well, a little too beautiful, isn't he?" "Haha, you're right. He outshines most women." Her companion laughed. "The Duke, on the other hand, seems so strong and protective. They are both members of the imperial family and descendants of divine Beastkin, so it's only natural they get compared," a wiser voice noted. "That's also why Demios is so wary of Roxan." Suddenly, a predatory shadow fell over the group. "Are you looking for a partner?" The ladies flinched. "Then how about our eldest son, Gallard Louv?" Titié's father offered with a greasy grin. The ladies recoiled. The son of House Louv is notoriously a drunkard and a lout. What kind of noble lady would want such a man? "I suppose leeching off of Titié isn't enough for them," one whispered. "That's right. There is no gentleman quite like our son," the father insisted, oblivious to their disgust. Elsewhere, a man leaned in to whisper a rumor. "The raid forces have been in the barbarian lands for so long, they might have been contaminated by all kinds of things, don't you think? They are the heroes we are celebrating." "How could he say such a thing?" a woman gasped. "Haha. Oh, have you heard?" another gossip chimed in. "That His Majesty opened the capital gates to the raid forces ahead of time." "That's right," Titié said, stepping into the conversation with a soft sigh. "With the festivities around the corner, I was starting to get anxious." "Is that so? What a relief! His Majesty is, after all, the most fair and just beastkin of the Empire," a man noted. "The fact that his brand would appear on our dear Titié. A silver wolf and a white deer. Aren't they just the most wonderful pair?" Titié giggled. "Don't you agree, Titié?" "Ha!" Titié laughed, her voice light and airy. Then she dropped her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "I was actually the one who asked His Majesty to allow the raid forces inside the capital." The Empress, standing nearby, froze. "That can't be. I'm the one who ordered to open the gates." She stared at Titié's profile. How could she lie so blatantly with such an innocent face? "Oh my, is that true?" the ladies gasped. "I had no idea you were so thoughtful." "It was nothing," Titié demurred, looking down modestly. "They are the ones who brought glory to the Empire, so I wanted them to be treated well and had to pester His Majesty about it." "Huh!" A loud, rough voice cut through the fawning crowd. A soldier stepped forward, looking confused. "What do you mean?" "The person who ordered to open up the gates was Her Majesty the Empress," The silence that followed was deafening. Titié's smile faltered. The soldier turned to the tall, imposing figure beside him. "Wasn't it Lord Roxan?" Duke Leopold stepped into the light, his golden eyes sweeping over the crowd, landing coldly on Titié before shifting to the Empress. "That's right," the Duke declared, his voice deep and authoritative. "It was all thanks to Her Majesty." He didn't stop there. "That's not all. Her Majesty even arranged our accommodations for us." The crowd gasped, turning their eyes toward the Empress. "Even those who were unable to make it here tonight are grateful to you, Your Majesty," the Duke finished, bowing his head in respect. "As expected of the Star of Ishtar." "Oh my!" The mood in the room shifted instantly. "The Beastkin Empire has been at peace ever since Her Majesty arrived, after all." "That's right. Her Majesty has also started all kinds of charity work to help the poor. The Mother of the Empire possesses both mercy and wisdom." The praise washed over the Empress, but her eyes were locked on Titié. The mistress stood frozen, her face pale, the lie hanging in the air like a foul odor. "But," a lady whispered loud enough to be heard, "why would His Majesty's mistress tell such a lie?" The ballroom buzzed with the hushed, venomous whispers of the aristocracy. Eyes darted behind fans, lips curling in judgment as the gossip spread like wildfire. "But why would His Majesty's mistress tell such a lie?" one noblewoman murmured, her voice dripping with skepticism. "Oh, well," another replied, feigning innocence. "I thought the gates were open because of my request to His Majesty." "Ha, that makes no sense." Near the center of the room, Count Louv stood tall, his chest puffed out with arrogant pride. He swirled his wine, speaking loudly enough for the surrounding crowd to hear. "The great son of the Empire could never be swayed by mere pillow talk." A distinct, mocking scoff cut through the air. Count Louv's face flushed a deep crimson. He whipped around, his eyes scanning the crowd for the source of the disrespect. "Pillow talk?" he bellowed, his composure shattering. "Are you referring to my daughter as some common prostitute? You have spent too long in the barbarian lands. Where are your manners?" The dark-haired man stepped forward, the heel of his boot clicking ominously against the marble floor. His expression was cold, unyielding. "Count Louv," he said, his voice a low rumble that silenced the immediate area. "Are you insulting my men and calling them barbaric?" Louv froze. Recognition dawned in his eyes, turning his anger into sudden, pale-faced terror. "Duke Leopold," he stammered, his knees buckling slightly. Suddenly, a soft pop echoed through the silence. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Ladies hid their smiles behind fans, and men chuckled openly. On top of Count Louv's head, a pair of fuzzy, ridiculous animal ears had materialized. "Oh dear, look at those ears!" a woman tittered. "For shame!" another whispered loudly. "How embarrassing!" Louv, realizing his humiliation, bowed frantically, his new ears twitching. "I misspoke, Your Grace. Please forgive me. My father was being too harsh," she pleaded, looking up at Duke Leopold with a practiced, pitiful gaze. "I would like to make it up to you with a dance, Your Grace." She curtsied low, extending a hand, but the Duke didn't even glance at it. His eyes drifted past her, locking onto a figure with shimmering silver hair standing in the distance. "I would like to dedicate my first dance to Her Majesty," Leopold announced, his voice carrying clearly. "To whom I owe so much." He walked past the stunned Titié and approached the silver-haired woman. He bowed deeply, extending his hand with a grace that belied his earlier intimidation. "May I have the honor of this dance?" The woman, the Empress in disguise, looked at him with a mix of surprise and relief. As he led her to the dance floor, the music swelled, and they began to move in a slow, elegant waltz. "Are you upset that I hid my identity?" the Duke asked softly, guiding her through a turn. The Empress met his gaze. "It would be a lie to say no," she admitted. "But I also did not tell you that I am the Empress, so we will call it even. But my name is also Roxan. It's my childhood name. My mother gave it to me. I am much more attached to it than Claude," a silent gesture of camaraderie. "So, I would like you to keep calling me Roxan, since we are friends already." The Duke smiled, a genuine warmth reaching his eyes. All right. Later, in the quiet grandeur of the palace, Emperor Roxan stood before a tall man with long, flowing white hair. The air between them was thick with tension. So you made it back alive, Roxan? The man said, his voice smooth but edged with something unreadable. It is all thanks to you, your majesty. Roxan replied dutifully, though her posture remained stiff. And thanks to them as well. The emperor stepped closer, his presence looming. It doesn't matter anymore. There is nothing you can do. He looked down at her, his red eyes gleaming possessively. You cannot say anything. Just keep watching things get taken away from you. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper that sent a chill down her spine. I am the emperor now. Both the empire and the empress are mine. Now you must be tired. Go rest up. I shall get going, Roxan said, turning sharply on her heel. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the Louvre estate was volatile. How dare that little whelp humiliate me in front of all those nobles? Count Louvre roared, pacing the drawing room like a caged beast. His wife sat on the sofa, clutching a handkerchief, mourning the porcelain shards on the floor. That teacup was worth a fortune. How could you break it? You're the one who insulted the raid forces first, you know. The count snapped back. Shut up, woman! He yelled, vein popping in his forehead. How dare you shout at me when you can't even take proper care of your own child? How could you let Gallard get so drunk that he misses the ball? Why are you bringing him up right now? The countess shrieked. And why is that my fault? The heavy sound of a palm hitting the table silenced them both. Titié stood there, her hands stinging from the impact, her eyes pleading. Mother, father, please calm down. This isn't our only chance. She took a breath, smoothing her dress. I'll talk to His Majesty and make sure we have another good opportunity. The transformation in her parents was instantaneous. Our sweet little daughter. Her father cooed, his anger vanishing into greedy affection. I knew I could count on you. He leaned in, rubbing his hands together. I had a favor to ask of you, Titié. What if you were to ask His Majesty for a good sword for Gallard? You know he dreams of being a knight. Also, her mother chimed in. We have been looking for a house in the capital, but we cannot find anything to our satisfaction. Could you ask His Majesty will come to see me soon. Titié interrupted, forcing a bright, strained smile. Could you please leave now? Oh, right, her father said, dismissing her discomfort. The most important thing is for you to steal His Majesty's heart. Yes, yes. We shall get going, her mother added, bustling toward the door. And don't forget to ask the Emperor about what we just told you, all right? The door clicked shut. Titié stood frozen for a moment, the smile sliding off her face like melting wax. They're so annoying, she muttered. A scream tore from her throat. She grabbed her own hair, shaking with suppressed rage. I hate them. She spun around, her eyes wild. Those hyenas! How dare they keep asking me for favors? And they keep saying foolish things in front of everyone like the useless idiots they are. Her gaze landed on a maid who was cowering near the broken teacup. What are you waiting for? Titié snapped, extending her hand. Clean this up at once. Oh, of course. The maid gasped, scrambling to the floor to pick up the shards. Titié stomped her heel down, crushing a piece of porcelain next to the maid's hand. Ah, the maid cried out. I finally feel better. Titié exhaled, smoothing her hair as if nothing had happened. Get a carriage ready. I am going to go see His Majesty. Her eyes narrowed with dark determination. As soon as I make His Majesty fall for me, I'll get rid of those Louvre fools for good. Titié arrived at the Emperor's chambers unannounced. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of moonlight. The Emperor lay on his bed, his robe hanging loosely off his shoulders, exposing his chest. What brings you here, Titié? He asked, not bothering to sit up. You did not come to see me, so I came to you, Your Majesty. She purred, walking towards the bed. Is that all right? She sat on the edge of the mattress, her eyes tracing the lines of his muscles. His Majesty's chiseled body, it's so beautiful to behold, she thought, her heart racing. I swear. I'll make him mine. Your Majesty, she whispered, leaning over him. I have been waiting for this moment this whole time. The Emperor looked at her, his expression bored. You don't seem upset that I didn't come to visit, he observed dryly. You are always so submissive, unlike someone I know. Titié froze. He's thinking of the Empress. Her gaze fell to his chest, where a magical brand glowed faintly against his skin. You are branded onto my chest. After all, I belong to you, Your Majesty. She gritted her teeth, forcing her expression to remain soft. You prefer frail females, she realized. You want a fool who can't do anything without you. He reached out, his fingers brushing lightly against the brand on his skin. Ha, Your Majesty, he breathed, leaning down to kiss her neck. If I can make you mine, I'll be whatever you want, she vowed silently. A frail and foolish female. Her eyes glinted in the darkness, sharp and predatory. Just you wait. I'll make sure to tear you away from the Empress completely. It was the third day of the victory celebrations, and the palace was alive with a chaotic bustle. Music and laughter filled the air, but amidst the glittering crowd, the Empress felt a distinct sense of unease. I have so much to do, she thought, navigating the throng. I shouldn't stay too long tonight. Roxan isn't here anyway, so… She paused, catching herself. Oh dear, what am I thinking? Roxan's presence shouldn't have anything to do with this. She tried to move forward, but a wall of suitors blocked her path. Greetings, Your Majesty, a man said, bowing low. May I have the honor of this dance with you? Before she could answer, another stepped in front of him. Who is he? No, please dance with me first, Your Majesty, a third voice bellowed, shoving his way through. I am the second son of a count. I easily outrank these two. The Empress stared at them, overwhelmed. What is going on with these men? She wondered, stepping back. Whispers rippled through the crowd around her. The rumors must be true. One guest murmured behind a fan. What rumors? Asked another. It appears that the Empress invites a different male into her palace each evening. In a quieter corner of the hall, Lady Titié stood with a group of noblewomen, feigning distress. You don't seem well, Lady Titié, one of the women noted. Is there something on your mind? Well, you see. Titié hesitated, turning to ensure she had their full attention. I heard that Her Majesty is taking in a different male each night. The women gasped. Different males? I am worried that His Majesty might find out and be upset, Titié whispered, looking genuinely concerned. Oh, please keep this between us. So, you mustn't tell anyone else. Is there any proof to this rumor? One woman asked. Titié quickly tried to walk it back, maintaining her facade of innocence. I kindly asked you to refrain from spreading such rumors. Please consider how hurtful this would be to hear for Her Majesty. Oh my, we didn't consider that, the woman replied. You are so kind-hearted, Lady Titié. Not at all, Titié said demurely, but internally a dark smirk crossed her mind. But if that rumor is true, I would actually be relieved. That Her Majesty might be alone every night because of me. Suddenly, a commotion broke out near the Empress. A drunk man staggered through the crowd, nearly tripping over a maid. The it. The man slurred, trying to catch his balance. Betty! Are you all right? He rushed forward blindly, almost colliding with the Empress. He stopped, swaying, his eyes unfocused. Your Majesty! Why are you standing there, blocking my way? The Empress recoiled slightly. Ugh, he reeks of alcohol. She looked past him to the servant on the floor. Did you just push my maid? The man turned, blinking. Your maid, Your Majesty? Oh dear, my mistake. My name is Gallard Louv. He hiccuped loudly. I am Titié's older brother. The Empress narrowed her eyes. Apologize to my maid first. Gallard sneered, his drunken confidence surging. I heard that you like to have men come into your palace every night. He stepped closer, invading her personal space. If you invite me into your bedroom, I can guarantee that you won't want anyone else. The surrounding crowd gasped. The Empress stood rigid, her face cold. I will not forget this insolence from you. How rude of you. A deep voice cut through the tension. A hand clamped down on Gallard's wrist. There was a sickening crack. Gallard screamed as the bone gave way. "Get out!" the newcomer growled, shoving Gallard backward. The Empress looked up, her heart pounding. "Roxan!" Roxan turned to her, his expression shifting from fury to concern. "Are you hurt?" "Oh no, I'm all right," she assured him, though she was still shaken. Roxan glanced at the whispering crowd. "There seems to be a strange rumor going around about you. Not for long until I take care of it." "I wouldn't be so sure," the Empress said quietly. "The more people share it, the more these rumors take flight." Roxan looked back at the groaning Gallard. "That shameless man just insulted you the way he did because of that rumor, did he not?" He turned back to her, a strange resolve in his eyes. "So use me." "Pardon?" Roxan leaned in closer, dropping his voice to a whisper. "Make me your lover, your majesty." "What do you?" She stared at him, stunned. "To be exact, make everyone believe that I am," Roxan explained. "If I stay by your side, at least you won't have to deal with what just happened." The Empress hesitated, processing his offer. "But," she looked at his earnest face and finally nodded. "Okay." Roxan offered his arm, his demeanor shifting instantly to that of a devoted suitor. "Shall we go then, Sepia?" The name hit her like a physical blow. Sepia, she thought, her chest tightening. No one has called me by that name in so long. I have only been called Empress or Your Majesty. She took his arm, and he led her away from the stifling ballroom and out into the cool night air of the palace grounds. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked as they walked along the stone path. "A garden at night is a typical rendezvous spot for secret lovers," Roxan replied smoothly. She looked up at the moon, doubt creeping in. "Am I really doing the right thing?" She glanced at Roxan. "What's on your mind?" "I was wondering if you had a lover of your own, Roxan," she admitted. "If so, asking for your help in this way would be a great discourtesy to her." Roxan stopped walking. He looked out into the darkness. "Well, I did have one in the past, someone I loved." He paused, his voice softening. "I still love her, and—" He turned to look at her, his eyes filled with a complicated emotion. "However, we were forced apart by circumstances beyond our control. It seems that too much time has passed for me to return to her side." The Empress felt a pang of sympathy. "I see. I am sure she is still waiting for you." Roxan looked at her intently. "Do you think so?" Before she could answer, the sound of rustling fabric and footsteps approached from the pathway. "Oh, we mustn't," Roxan said, his voice suddenly louder, theatrical. "Hurry and come into my arms," he whispered urgently. He pulled her close, and before she could react, he kissed her. A blush rose to her cheeks as she realized the onlookers had arrived. "What a perfect place to start rumors," he murmured against her lips. "What do you?" He leaned in again, his heart beating a steady rhythm against hers. "We deserve a little fun too, don't you think?" he whispered, a playful glint in his eyes. "We deserve a little fun too, don't you think?" The whisper hung in the air, thick with deliberate intimacy. Roxan leaned in, his proximity calculated to send a jolt through the observers. "Just stay still for a moment, we're a little too close," she breathed, though she didn't pull away. The reaction was immediate. A collective gasp rippled through the garden. "Is that the Empress?" someone hissed, scandalized. "And isn't that Duke Leopold next to her?" The whispers spread like wildfire, just as intended. This was all part of Roxan's plan, she realized, keeping her expression composed. "Now that people have seen us like this, word will spread in no time." "Are you cold?" Roxan asked aloud, his voice tender enough for the audience to catch. "No, I am fine," she replied, playing her part. She watched him, her mind racing. What is he thinking? I am glad to hear it. But how much of this is an act? The grand palace doors slowly open. Warm light spills onto the red carpet, sparkling like gold. The moment the doors opened, all eyes turned toward them. Soft, glittering light frames the entrance, as if announcing something sacred. The man steps forward confidently, dressed in formal black. The woman beside him wears an elegant white gown. Their hands are clasped. "They're coming." "Oh my! That rumor just now must be true," a noble murmured nearby. "I never imagined that Duke Leopold would be the Empress's lover." The gossip shifted, vindicating her reputation exactly as they had hoped. Then the rumor about Her Majesty bringing in different males every night must be false. Of course. Duke Leopold would never allow it. Roxan's plan had worked perfectly. Yet, the weight of the collective gaze was heavy, pressing in on her from all sides. The stares we are receiving are so bold, she admitted softly to him. It's a little overwhelming. Could we go somewhere else with less people? She asked. Let us go to the balcony then, Roxan suggested, guiding her away from the prying eyes. The night air on the balcony was cooler, the noise of the party baffled by the glass doors. The gentle clink of their wine glasses marked a moment of respite. Thank you for your help, she said, though a thread of unease lingered in her chest. Though I do worry about the trouble you might have to go through because of me. I am the one who volunteered to be used. She studied him over the rim of her glass. Why did he help me? It's too big a favor to be done out of pure friendship. She lowered her glass, determination in her eyes. Roxan, Your Majesty. This way, the sharp voice cut through the moment. I saw Her Majesty coming this way. Demios and Sepia approached, the intrusion shattering their privacy. Demios's gaze was sharp, his smile mocking. So you are not even trying to hide it now? He sneered. Why should I? She shot back, straightening her posture. How surprising. Do you have no pride as the Empress? Or did your brand just appear on the Duke all of a sudden? She held her ground against his scrutiny. I simply found a way to get rid of the unsavory rumors surrounding me. She glanced at Roxan. And that is to use Duke Leopold? I offered to help Her Majesty. Roxan interjected smoothly, stepping to her side. Because no one would dare to approach her so recklessly if I stay by her side. Demios's eyes narrowed, his amusement darkening. It would be best for you, Your Majesty, to look into the source of this rumor. He paused, his voice dropping to a menacing purr. Who knows who the next rumor might target? Beside him, Sepia shivered, looking visibly uncomfortable. Why, Your Majesty, it's too cold out here, let us go elsewhere. Demios turned to leave, but he stopped for one final, parting curse. All right, just remember this. He looked back, his red eyes glinting. Anyone who gets involved with the Duke ends up in ruin and despair. The footsteps of the pair faded, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. Sepia, Demios murmured as they disappeared. Roxan broke the silence first. I apologize, but may I excuse myself first? His tone was clipped, his face unreadable. Roxan. She watched him go, guilt gnawing at her. He had to take that insult all because of me. Of course. I feel so bad. A few days later, the rhythmic brushing of her hair by Madame Lemedy offered a moment of quiet reflection, but Demios's words still echoed in her mind. Anyone who gets involved with the Duke ends up in ruin and despair. What did Demios mean by that, Madame Lemedy? She asked, meeting the older woman's eyes in the mirror. You have served in the palace for many years, have you not? Yes, my mother served the late princess, after all. Then, you must know a lot about Roxan. I mean, what Duke Leopold was like in the past. Madame Lemedy paused, the brush halting in her hand. Her expression turned somber. Though he has returned a hero, the Duke was once a helpless young boy swept up by unfortunate rumors. She began the tale, her voice low. You know that the late Emperor Giladier, His Majesty's father, had an older brother named Roximus, right? His son is Duke Claude Leopold. Though this rumor is kept secret, they say that Roximus was next in line to the throne, but that he gave up the position to his younger brother Giladier, who then became the emperor. Madame Lemedy continued, painting a picture of a tragic past. This is why, once Duke Leopold was born, late Empress Uriel was so wary of him. The Duke fell ill for mysterious reasons one day, and was even bedridden for a time. The brother who gave up his throne, and his son, born of imperial blood, Lord Roximus, and his wife were fully aware of this, so they were always very cautious. But in the end, they both passed away from an infectious disease. An infectious disease? The Empress frowned. What about Roxan? He had just returned from studying abroad, so he was able to avoid catching the disease. But this ended up working against his favor. What do you mean? The residents of the territory grew suspicious of the successor, the only one not affected by the disease. A rumor quickly spread about the Duke bringing the disease with him and being at the root of everything. They said that a curse had befallen the imperial family. That is ludicrous, she exclaimed. On top of that, they apparently discovered several dead animals and a mysterious magic circle in his room as well. Madame Lemedy whispered. The maid who first discovered it testified to this, so all the rumors were taken as truth. So this is what Demios was referring to on the balcony. But the Duke I know would never do such a thing, the Empress stated firmly, her conviction absolute. Someone must have framed him. I think so too. Madame Lemedy agreed gently. Thank you for sharing, Madame Lemedy. I thought you ought to know, Your Majesty. The maid smiled warmly, her eyes crinkling. Whatever your relationship with the Duke may be, there is nothing to worry about us. Of course not, but I will be on your side no matter what happens, Your Majesty. No, that's not. She tried to correct the misunderstanding, but a knock on the door interrupted them. Clack. Your Majesty, you have a guest. A guest? Greetings, Your Majesty. But then, stepping into view, was the Duke himself, a charming smile playing on his lips. May I steal some of your time? She blinked, surprised by his sudden appearance. Roxan? Sepia watched the man sitting across from her, his dark hair framing a face that seemed both composed and weary. Her thoughts drifted to what she knew of him. He must have had such a hard life since he was a child. Roxan glanced up, catching her gaze. I might get the wrong idea if you keep staring like that. Sepia flinched, realizing she had been lost in thought. Oh, I apologize. But what do you mean? Roxan offered a small, enigmatic smile. Never mind. Trying to recover her composure, Sepia gestured to the tea set on the table. Do you have a favorite tea? I would like some Bremen tea if you have it. The porcelain cup clinked softly against the saucer as she poured. Sepia watched the steam rise, surprised by his choice. I am surprised you picked this tea. Beastkin tend not to enjoy it. Roxan lifted the cup, the aroma drifting between them. My lover used to like this tea. Sepia felt a sudden, cold pang in her chest. I see. Roxan took a sip, his eyes crinkling at the corners. What a coincidence. I really like this tea as well. He set the cup down gently. In any case, what brings you here today? Sepia straightened, ready to address the purpose of his visit, but Roxan spoke first. I would like to borrow the map of the palace grounds in your possession, Sepia. Sepia blinked, confused. The map? May I ask why? I am looking for the keepsake that my father hid somewhere in the palace. Roxan explained, his tone serious. Madame Lemedy told me about his father, Roximus. Sepia nodded slowly. I'm sure Roxan has his reasons to be looking for such a thing. All right. I will lend you my map. Thank you, Roxan said earnestly. I will report to you once a week to ensure that I have not lost it. That is not necessary, Sepia assured him warmly. I trust you, Roxan. Roxan leaned forward slightly, a playful glint entering his dark eyes. But that way, I have an excuse to see you at least once a week, Sepia. Sepia's eyes widened, and a flush rose to her cheeks. She stared at him, speechless, as he simply smiled. He turned to her, extending an arm. Would you like to take a walk with me? They moved the conversation outdoors, stepping into the crisp winter air. The palace gardens were blanketed in white. How beautifully the snow has piled up, Roxan remarked, looking out over the pristine landscape. They walked side by side along the path, the snow crunching softly beneath their boots. Roxan glanced at her, concerned. Are you cold at all? No, I'm fine. It's quite nice actually, Sepia replied, pulling her cloak tighter. Her mind was still reeling from his earlier comment. What he said earlier sounded like he wanted to keep seeing me. Suddenly, Roxan stopped and pointed. Look over there, Sepia. Sepia started, then gasped as a small creature popped out from the bushes. A fox? Here? She stared at the small, reddish animal. Could it be a beastkin? No adult beastkin would walk around in animal form like that. The fox trotted up to Sepia, whining softly and wagging its bushy tail. Does it want me to pet it? She wondered aloud. She crouched down, stroking its soft fur. How sweet, Roxan observed, watching the interaction. Judging by how friendly it is, it might have an owner who's looking for it. You're right, Sepia agreed, scratching the fox behind the ears. A fox this tame. Roxan extended a hand toward the animal, but the fox immediately bared its teeth. A low growl rumbled from its throat. Roxan pulled his hand back, amused. I guess it isn't friendly to everyone. The fox pressed closer to Sepia, glaring at Roxan. It only seems to like you, Sepia. Roxan noted, watching the animal's defensive posture. It seems to take me as his rival. Sepia laughed nervously. His rival? You, Roxan? And this little one? I assume that means it's a male fox. Roxan said dryly. You seem more interested in that fox than me. Don't be silly. Sepia scolded gently. Suddenly, the fox seemed to realize something and darted away, rushing into the underbrush. Oh! Where are you going? Sepia called out, taking a step to follow. Her foot found a slick patch of ice hidden beneath the snow. Oh dear! She gasped as she slipped. In an instant, strong arms were around her, catching her before she could fall. Roxan held her steady, his face close to hers. I didn't intend for that to happen, he murmured, looking at where the animal had vanished. But it looks like my rival is gone now. Sepia looked up at him, breathless. You seem glad he's gone, Roxan. Roxan gazed down at her, his expression softening into something more vulnerable. Did you know that friends can get jealous as well? Sepia blinked, her heart pounding. You make it sound like you were jealous of that fox. I was, a little, Roxan admitted, his voice low and intense. Actually, very much so. He tightened his hold on her slightly, the winter air forgotten around them. I hope you'll like me more than anyone else. Sepia stared at him, stunned into silence, her face heating up despite the cold. Meanwhile, at Credwar Manor, chaos was unfolding in the study. Look at me, Jasper! A voice shouted. I'm a human! A human! Jasper Credwar, captain of the Imperial Knights and a fox beastkin, sat in a chair with a book in his hand. He sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. Standing before him was a tall man with vibrant red hair, stark naked and beaming with pride. I can see that, Jasper muttered, keeping his eyes averted. But please put on some clothes first, Etensel. Etensel Credwar ignored the request, striking a pose. I understand that you're excited, Etensel, Jasper continued wearily. But it's already been hours. I'm not just excited, Etensel interrupted, clenching his fists with emotion. Everyone else was able to take their human form as soon as they were born, but I couldn't for over 20 years. I've lived as a fox all my life. Do you have any idea what that was like? Jasper looked at his brother, seeing the genuine tears in his eyes. He softened. I'm sorry. Etensel grabbed a shirt, finally beginning to dress. But then, wait, is this about Her Majesty again? Jasper asked, connecting the dots. Of course. She's the one who enabled me to take on a human form, Etensel declared passionately, buttoning the shirt. I told you that can't be true, Jasper countered, trying to inject logic into the situation. But it is, Etensel insisted, grabbing Jasper by the shoulders. We tried all kinds of medicines, holy water, and even folk remedies, but I wasn't able to take on a human form until Her Majesty touched me. Do you really think that makes any sense? Why not? Jasper sighed, adjusting the brooch on his collar. Her Majesty is the Star of Ishtar. Etensel spun around, admiring himself. I'm sure she cured me of my illness. Her Majesty has to be my soulmate. Etensel, please. Jasper groaned. I mean, I'm pretty handsome, aren't I? Etensel grinned, checking his reflection. I'm sure I have what it takes to woo the Empress. Put on some pants, will you? Jasper snapped. Stop spouting nonsense. The Emperor and the Duke are her males, so why would she even spare you a glance? What if her brand were to appear on my body? That's how the Emperor found his mistress, right? Now that's called destiny. Like I said, Jasper said firmly. Her Majesty is a human. Her brand won't appear on anyone. Etensel paused, buttoning his pants. Who knows? She may be a human, but she is the Star of Ishtar, and is deeply linked to us Beastkin. Jasper fell silent, looking away. An unbidden thought crossed his mind, a dark realization he had kept to himself. But I knew as soon as I smelled him that I would be fighting over the same thing with him. Etched moved closer, interrupting Jasper's brooding. What do you mean? Jasper looked up. Jasper, please do me this one favor. A favor? Etched grinned, his red hair falling over his eyes, looking predatory and eager. When you go back into the palace, take me with you. I need to see Her Majesty in this human form. The afternoon light filtered softly into the drawing room, illuminating the chessboard that sat between them. Roxan rested his chin in his hand, humming thoughtfully as he surveyed the pieces. Across from him, the Empress Sepia moved her piece with decisive grace. Checkmate. Roxan leaned back, a small smile touching his lips as he admitted defeat. Well, you got me. He looked at her with a gentle expression. Please go easy on me next time. Next time. Sepia repeated the words quietly, a shadow of melancholy crossing her thoughts. In her heart, she knew they had been using the map she lent him as an excuse to meet up every week, but she wondered how many more, next times, there would be. She broke the silence. I assume you will return to your territory once you retrieve your father's keepsake. Yes, I suppose I will have to, Roxan replied, his gaze lowering. The people there must still believe that Roxan is the cause of that disease. Would he be safe there? She asked, her voice laced with worry. Actually, I heard about what happened in the Leopold territory. She continued, leaning forward earnestly. I believe you must have been framed, Roxan. And I am certain the misunderstanding will clear up someday. Sepia, Roxan began, but the sharp clack of the door handle interrupted him. The heavy door creaked open, revealing Sepia's maid, who looked pale and flushed with panic. Pardon me, Your Majesty. Sepia stared, startled. How sudden, she thought. But His Majesty is here to see you. The maid stammered hurriedly. Please ask him to wait for a moment, Sepia instructed. Yes, of course. Before the maid could finish, a forceful shove sent her stumbling aside with a flinch. The Emperor Demios strode into the room, his long silver hair flowing behind him and his red eyes narrowed in cold amusement. I see why your maid was hesitating to let me in, he remarked dryly. He looked from Sepia to the Duke. You said you simply meant to lay rest to a rumor. His gaze sharpened. But that does not seem to be the case. We were only playing chess, Sepia replied evenly. Demios scoffed, stepping closer. Well, what did you intend to do after the game? Nothing at all, she answered, rising to her feet. What brings you here to the Empress's palace, Your Majesty? Demios looked past her, fixing his eyes on the Duke. Does a husband need a special reason to see his wife? The air in the room grew heavy with tension. Sepia turned to Roxan, her expression apologetic. I apologize, but would you head back for today? If you wish, Sepia, Roxan said, standing up. As he passed the Emperor, the two men exchanged a silent, venomous glare. See you soon, Roxan, Demios said, his voice smooth but dangerous. Once the door clicked shut, leaving them alone, Demios turned on her. Did you meet with the Duke out of necessity today? It sounded like you would be meeting him again soon. He pressed. I have something to discuss with him, Sepia defended. Demios let out a harsh laugh. The Empress has something to discuss with the Duke? What a weak excuse. He looked at her with disdain. No matter how many times I meet with the Duke, it will certainly amount to less time than the hours that you spend with your mistress. Sepia's patience snapped. Did you not just come from Titié's palace now? She looked at him, hurt and frustration warring in her eyes. Why are you treating me this way? Once you took in a mistress, I thought our relationship had simplified to that of Emperor and Empress. Why are you acting as if we've ever been husband and wife? She demanded. Why must it be the Duke out of all people? Demios stepped closer, looming over her. Why is that so important to you, Your Majesty? Why do you despise the Duke so much? She asked. Is it because of his past? His expression darkened instantly. So you knew? And you still insist on keeping him at your side? I do not believe stories that cannot be proven, Sepia stated firmly. Did you choose to believe what was said without trying to seek the truth, Your Majesty? I am saying this out of concern for you. She took a breath, holding her ground. Even if I were to really take the Duke as my lover, his past would have nothing to do with it. All I need to do is fulfill my duty as the Empress. Am I wrong? Just as you are carrying out your duty as the Emperor. Demios laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Haha, you! Actually taking the Duke as your lover? Suddenly he grabbed her face, his fingers digging into her cheeks. The person you are bound by marriage is me, Sepia. His face was inches from hers, his eyes glowing with intensity. You often seem to forget who your husband really is. Sepia froze, paralyzed by his aura. I can't move, she realized in panic. Isn't that right? Why aren't you answering? He demanded softly. My Empress can be a little too cheeky. With a sudden shove, he pushed her backward. Sepia fell onto the sofa with a startled ah. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Baitum. Demios stood over her, casting a long shadow. I will say this again. He leaned down, placing a hand on the sofa back, trapping her. A mistress is just a mistress. But you, Empress, are my wife. He reached out, his fingers grazing her cheek. Do you understand that? Our relationship. He murmured, tracing her skin. Sepia slapped his hand away. Completely shattered the moment you decided to take in a mistress, Your Majesty. Ha! Demios sneered. Do not twist the truth, Sepia. You are the one who rejected me first. The words triggered a memory, sharp and visceral. The slide of a silk strap slipping down her arm. A hand touching her bare skin. Sorry. I do not think I am ready. She had whispered into the darkness. I see. He had replied then, turning away. Back in the present, Sepia realized with a jolt. Demios is referring to our wedding night 5 years ago. Demios watched the realization dawn on her face and smirked cruelly. Why do you look so shocked? Don't tell me you forgot already. Sepia looked away, shame and confusion swirling within her. I couldn't go through with it, she thought. It felt like I was instinctively repelled. I still don't know why. This duty as the Empress you always speak of, Demios said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Would it not be that of producing an heir for the throne? He gripped her arms, pinning her in place. It's already been 5 years. 5 years of you rejecting me. If you're in need of a partner in bed, ask Titié. Sepia spat out, trying to push him away. You're treating me like some animal. Demios glared at her, his eyes flashing red. Does the Duke know? The question hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. That the Empress is barren. Sepia's breath itched. Before she could react, he pushed her down further, his body pressing her into the cushions. Her dress slipped at the shoulder under his rough grip. I suggest you keep in mind. He whispered against her skin, his hands sliding ominously lower. That I, your husband, shall be the only one to hold you. He looked down at her with a predatory smile. After all, it is a husband's right to ravish his wife, is it not? After all, it is a husband's right to ravish his wife, is it not? The voice was low, laced with a chilling entitlement that made my blood run cold. No! I don't want this! I screamed, my voice cracking as I struggled against the overwhelming force. But the plea vanished into the oppressive darkness of the room. You should be wiser with your decisions, Sepia. He sneered, his grip tightening. Don't forget about your duty as the Empress. In the silent palace corridor, the sound of clack, step echoes as Demios turns at the familiar presence. Roxan steps forward, his sharp gaze locking onto the silver-haired man as he calls his name. Demios. For a split second, Demios stiffens in surprise. But before he can react, Roxan lunges forward and slams him against the wall with a hard pow, forcing a pained groan from Demios. Pressed tightly, Demios grits his teeth in fury and snaps. You fool! How dare you assault me? A cruel smirk twisted his lips in the shadows. I told you I'd be back, didn't I? He shoved me away with disdainful force. I'm just keeping my word, that's all. You'll never take my place, ever. As consciousness faded, his final words hung heavy in the air, a curse disguised as a promise. The Empress will never remember you. The scene shifted. In the quiet palace garden, The Empress walks slowly along the stone path, her long dress brushing the ground as winter's last traces linger around them. Beside her, her maid looks up at the bare branches beginning to bloom, smiling softly. "It looks like winter is almost over," the maid says with gentle excitement. The Empress follows her gaze, blue eyes calm and thoughtful, then gives a small nod. "You're right. You seem a bit down, Your Majesty. Is it because His Majesty took Lady Titié to the winter estate?" she asked, her tone rising with indignation. "It even upsets me to think of it. His Majesty can be so cold." I let out a soft, dry chuckle. "Don't worry. That does not bother me. It was the truth. His absence was a relief, not a burden. What truly bothered me was what he had said before he left. The duty of an empress that I have been avoiding. This duty as the empress you always speak of." His voice echoed in my memory, cold and demanding. "Would it not be that of producing an heir for the throne?" "My duty as the empress." I tightened my grip on my shawl. "How much longer will I be able to avoid him?" "Oh?" My attendant stopped, looking ahead. "That's..." Footsteps crunched softly against the path. "That's Captain Jasper, and who is the one next to him?" Captain Jasper approached and bowed low. "Greetings, Your Majesty. It has been a while, Captain," I said, offering a polite nod before turning my attention to the stranger beside him. "And this is..." The man was tall, with hair the color of autumn leaves and a charming, easy smile. He bowed with practiced elegance. "I am Etincelle Crudoir, the second son of House Crudoir." He straightened, his eyes crinkling warmly. "I have been eager to meet you, Your Majesty." "Right. Pleasure to meet you," I replied, masking my confusion. "I've never met him before, have I?" "My brother was begging me to take him to the palace, so I had no choice but to bring him along," Etincelle explained smoothly. His expression then shifted to one of contrition. "I also wanted to apologize about what happened at the victory celebrations." He must be referring to what Gallard Louv did. The name brought a sour taste to my mouth. Gallard Louv. I heard that someone paid a hefty amount of bail to get him out of prison within a week. Could Titié have paid that much money? No, I'm sure His Majesty ended up paying in her stead. "It's all right," I said aloud, forcing a reassuring smile. "It was not your fault in any way, Captain. Still," Etincelle insisted, "as the person in charge of safety at the banquet, I would like to make a formal apology. And to you as well, Mississippi." My attendant flushed pink, stammering, "It's all right." I turned back to the nobleman. "So, why did you insist on coming here with the captain?" Etincelle beamed, his demeanor brightening instantly. "I am looking for my fox. Someone told me that they had seen him within the Empress's palace gardens. I did see a red fox myself, actually. So he was yours." I realized. He tapped his chin thoughtfully. "I haven't seen him recently, so I was starting to get worried." He leaned in slightly, his tone playful. "In that case, Your Majesty, would you help me look for my fox?" "Me?" I asked, taken aback. We began to walk through the garden paths, scanning the underbrush. "So you were looking after my fox, Your Majesty," Etincelle noted. "I wouldn't say so," I corrected him gently. "I only got to see him once." "How did you come to lose him?" He disappeared one day out of nowhere, and I looked everywhere at the manor, but still couldn't find him," he explained. "I suspect he hopped into the carriage my brother took to work." "Oh, that is where I first saw your fox," I said. "I see. Of course he would hide in a spot like this." Etincelle mused, his eyes gleaming with a strange amusement. "He also tends to like beautiful women with blue eyes." "What do you mean?" I asked, frowning slightly. "Never mind," he said quickly, flashing a disarming smile. "Shall we keep looking, Your Majesty?" We approached a small, arched bridge spanning a frozen stream. "The bridge looks icy," Etincelle warned. He extended a gloved hand toward me. "Please take my hand." I hesitated, staring at his open palm. While I am most repelled by Demios, I feel so uncomfortable when I make any contact with men in general. I have gotten much better now, but still. But why didn't I feel the same type of repulsion with Roxan? "Your Majesty?" Etensel asked softly. Please, I wouldn't want you to slip. I tentatively reached out and placed my hand in his. Your hand is very cold, Your Majesty, he observed, his brow furrowing. Are you feeling unwell? He paused, his gaze piercing. Is it because I am touching a stranger? No, I'm all right, I lied. Shall we? We took a step onto the bridge. Every hair on my body was standing on end. It was incredibly slippery because of the packed snow, but I didn't want to hold on to his hand any tighter than absolutely necessary. As long as I'm careful, I should be. My boot lost traction on a patch of ice. Your Majesty! I tumbled forward, bracing for the hard impact. But the cold ground never came. Strong arms wrapped around me, halting my fall instantly. Caught me? A voice whispered, the tone shifting, dropping the polite facade. I told you, Sepia. You need to be careful when the ground is icy. I jolted, my heart hammering against my ribs as I looked up into the face hovering above mine. Demios? No. Roxan? I blinked, my mind reeling as I stared into eyes that held secrets I wasn't sure I was ready to uncover. Demios? No. The world spun briefly as she lost her footing on the slick surface. She blinked, her vision steadying as strong hands caught her. Roxan? She murmured, dazed. Are you all right? The man holding her asked, his voice steady. She regained her balance, smoothing her dress. Oh, yes, I'm fine. I was just a bit startled. The man who had caught her was not Roxan. He smirked slightly, releasing her arm. Anyone can tell you to be careful when the ground is icy. Come on, Sepia. She looked at him, recognizing the striking red hair. What is the second son of House Krudwar doing here at the Empress's palace? We were looking for my fox, he replied casually. Before the conversation could continue, a tall, dark-haired figure stepped between them. It was Roxan. He frowned deeply at the intruder. It would be best for you to continue the search alone from here on out, Roxan said, his voice cold. The icy ground is too dangerous for Her Majesty. The Krudwar noble raised an eyebrow, unfazed. And what brings you here to the Empress's palace? Oh, me? Roxan adjusted his cuffs, his demeanor shifting to a mask of casual indifference. I don't need a special reason to visit Her Majesty. The noble chuckled, a sharp sound in the cold air. You may not understand what I mean by that, young lad. Don't treat me like a child. He straightened his coat, glancing between the Empress and Roxan. I apologize, but I must get going now. The Duke and I have a prior engagement. Sepia flinched slightly at the sudden departure, but quickly composed herself. Oh, I understand. Then I shall come and see you again soon, Your Majesty, the noble said with a nod, turning to leave. Once they were alone, Sepia exhaled, the tension draining from her shoulders. She turned to Roxan as they began to walk through the snow-dusted garden. How did you know I was here, Roxan? She asked. We were rather deep inside the garden. One of your maids told me where you were, Roxan explained, falling into step beside her, though I hesitated to ask her since she seemed to be having a nice time with the captain of the knights. Sepia smiled softly. It sounds like Betty has fallen for that captain. Roxan did not return the smile. He looked ahead, his expression serious. Just in case you did not know, Your Majesty, you ought to be careful of younger males as well. You never know what they may be hiding behind their innocent faces. Sepia glanced at him, confused. What do you mean? The young fox of House Krudwar. Roxan's eyes narrowed slightly. Seems to want to become your friend, Your Majesty. My friend? Sepia scoffed gently. I doubt that. Roxan stopped, turning to face her. Sepia, I would like myself to be your only friend. Her heart skipped a beat, Batum, at the sudden intensity in his voice. She looked away, cheeks flushing. I've been meaning to tell you this, but you tend to say things that could be misunderstood, Roxan. Is that so? He leaned in slightly. But I sincerely mean everything I say. The air between them grew heavy with unspoken words. Sepia, desperate to shift the focus, asked a question that had been lingering in her mind. Have you found your lover yet, Roxan? Roxan halted. The silence stretched. Oh, I couldn't stop myself from asking. She stammered, regretting the intrusion. Yes, but… Roxan looked down, his gaze melancholic. She was already married. Oh. Sepia covered her mouth, her eyes widening. I apologize for prying. I do not know what to say. It is my fault for being so late. She is not, but to blame, Roxan said quietly. He looked up, a dark resolve in his eyes. I will have to wait and see whether her male is worthy of being her partner. Pardon? Sepia blinked, not quite catching his meaning. What do you… Never mind. Roxan shook his head, clearing the mood. He gestured to the horizon. We have arrived. The sun was already dipping below the mountains, casting long shadows across the snow. The sun is already setting, Roxan noted. The map, please show it to me next time. You should return before it gets too late. All right, she agreed. Roxan took her hand, bowing low to press a kiss to her knuckles. Your Majesty, may you have a restful night. You too, Roxan, she replied softly. Thank you for bringing me to such a beautiful place. You thank me too often, he said, straightening up. How could I not? She smiled warmly at him. I am so grateful to have you by my side, and that I have your brand on my body. She turned and walked away, the snow crunching beneath her boots. Roxan watched her go, his expression unreadable. In the luxurious warmth of the winter manor, Lady Titié sat upon the bed, the silk sheets pooling around her. The Emperor sat beside her, his long white hair cascading over his shoulders. Ah, Your Majesty, she sighed, leaning into his embrace. She smirked to herself, hidden from his view. It's clear, she thought, her mind racing. His relationship with the Empress has worsened. I'm the one he chose to bring to the Winter Manor, not the Empress. She recalled the sight she had seen earlier through the carriage window, poor commoners shuffling through the snow. Who would have thought I'd ever find snow beautiful? She mused. She remembered the murmurs of the beggars outside. The new Empress set up a workhouse? One had said. That's right. They said there would be free bread and water, so let's hurry. Titié's lip curled in disgust at the memory. Beggars like us have to fight over bread and water, while this Empress must be living luxuriously at her palace. This is nothing but disgusting hypocrisy. She tightened her grip on the Emperor's robe. I will never have to walk on dirty snow again. I am going to claim everything the Empress has. I am so happy, Your Majesty, so very happy, she said aloud, her voice dripping with sweetness. The Emperor stroked her hair absently. You are always happy and grateful, unlike someone I know. Titié seized the opportunity. Please do not look upon Her Majesty with such disfavor. If I were to cause a rift between you and the Empress, I fear that something frightening might happen. She looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Are you afraid of the Empress? The Emperor's face darkened. Yes. She hates me, after all. I do not believe that she hates you, Titié lied smoothly. She simply does not love anyone. She paused, gauging his reaction before playing her next card. Your Majesty, I heard that the cleansing ceremony will happen soon. She traced a finger down his chest. Could I go to the ceremony as well? The atmosphere in the room shattered instantly. What? The Emperor's voice was ice cold. Titié froze. The cleansing ceremony is a holy ritual, he said, his eyes narrowing menacingly. Reserved for only the Emperor and Empress, as descendants of the divine Beastkin. Outsiders who have not been allowed to enter by the goddess cannot step foot in the underground temple. Titié flinched under his glare, terror seizing her heart. She immediately threw her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. I apologize. I was a little jealous, so I could not help but ask. The tension slowly left the Emperor's frame. He sighed, wrapping his arms around her. If only you could be my very own, Your Majesty. You always know just what to say, he murmured, pulling her closer. You are my joy, Your Majesty. Titié breathed, relieved that the danger had passed. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed through the room, followed by the sound of the door opening. You have a guest, Lady Titié, a servant announced. Titié pulled away from the Emperor, annoyed at the interruption. She grabbed a perfume bottle from the vanity, spraying it to mask her irritation. "What is it now?" she snapped, turning toward the door. A dark figure stood in the doorway, blocking the light. The man stepped inside, a chilling smirk playing on his lips. It was Roxan. "Hello, white dear," he said, his voice low and dangerous. His eyes bore into hers, predatory and knowing. "How is that brand of yours?" The first day of the year marked the day of the cleansing ceremony, a solemn ritual that would decide the empire's fortune for the 12 months to come. It was a day demanding absolute purity and resolve. The weight of the crown pressed heavily upon the Empress, Sepia, as she prepared for the ordeal. The warning she had given herself echoed in her mind. "You should be wiser with your decisions, Sepia. Don't forget about your duty as the Empress." She had managed to avoid the Emperor, Demios, for some time, relieved not to run into him after their last encounter. But the ceremony required them to stand side by side. Today, she could not avoid him. "You look so beautiful, Your Majesty!" her maid exclaimed, fussing over the final touches of her ceremonial gown. "I'm sure this year will be a year of great fortune." "I think so too," Sepia replied, offering a gentle, albeit weary smile. "Thank you, you too." Her composure was a mask. As she stepped out to meet the Emperor, the air grew heavy. Demios stood waiting, his expression unreadable, his presence commanding. He offered his hand, his voice low and smooth. "Shall we?" "Yes," Sepia answered, taking his hand. Together, the Emperor and Empress waded into the temple lake. The ritual required them to stand in the sacred waters and stay awake all night to wash away all evil. The water was biting, a frigid shock that seeped through their ceremonial robes. "It's cold," Sepia murmured, shivering as the ripples lapped against her waist. "I heard the water that flows into this place turns into seawater." She scooped a handful of the shimmering liquid, watching it trickle through her fingers like diamonds in the moonlight. "I wonder how vast the actual sea is," she whispered, her thoughts drifting far beyond the temple walls. Demios watched her, his gaze intense. "What is on your mind?" Sepia hesitated. "Nothing. I just wonder what the real sea would look like." She paused, glancing at him. "You've never been?" "No." A memory surfaced, bittersweet and sharp. "When we were young," she thought, "he promised to take me to the sea." But looking at the cold, distant man beside her, the hope withered. "I'm certain he no longer remembers." "If you fulfill your duty as the Empress," Demios said suddenly, breaking her reverie, "I will take you to the sea as many times as you wish." Sepia's heart skipped a beat, but cynicism quickly followed. He was talking about an heir. He was talking about duty, not affection. Giving him an heir to the throne was the price of the sea. She looked at him, conflicting emotions warring within her. "Will I be able to accept him?" Suddenly, the Emperor staggered. His hand flew to his temple. "Your Majesty?" Sepia asked, alarm spiking in her voice. "Are you all right?" "My head hurts," he groaned, his voice strained. Before she could react, he collapsed forward, splashing heavily into the icy water. "Your Majesty!" Sepia cried out, grabbing his shoulders to keep him from submerging. Through the soaked fabric of his tunic, his skin radiated an unnatural heat. "He's burning up." Demios sank to his knees, his breathing ragged. Panic flared in Sepia's chest. "Your Majesty!" she gasped, struggling to support his weight. "Let me go get some help." "Please wait for a moment." She turned to rush toward the temple entrance, but a hand clamped onto her wrist with bruising force. "Don't go," he rasped. "Stay," he commanded, pulling her back. "Just for a minute. We need to get you help," Sepia pleaded, trying to pry his fingers loose. "It seems like you have a fever, Your Majesty." "I am, Your Majesty?" he interrupted, his voice dropping to a terrifying, guttural timbre. "I am your husband." He yanked her violently toward him. Sepia flinched, staring into his eyes. They were glowing with a menacing, crimson light, unrecognizable as the man she knew. "Say it," he hissed. Sepia struggled, twisting in his grip, but he was immovable. Turn, he ordered, his voice laced with a dark power. Ah! She cried out as he forced her around, his grip shifting to her throat. Sepia, he whispered, the name sounding like a curse on his lips. You are mine. Mine, he repeated, his fingers tightening, cutting off her air. Mine! He strangled her with a lethal intent, his thumbs digging into her windpipe. Sepia clawed at his hands, her vision swimming, terror eclipsing everything else. He strangled me as if he really wanted to kill me, she thought, her mind screaming in betrayal. How could he? The morning sun broke over the temple, casting long shadows across the stone floor. The long night was over. How are you feeling, Your Majesty? Sepia walked beside him, shaken to her core, yet physically unharmed. I am able to walk just fine. He didn't seem to remember. He didn't seem to recall the violence, the strangulation, the possession. It was as if the night's horror had been nothing but a nightmare she alone had endured. As they exited the temple gates, the palace servants rushed forward, their faces etched with concern. Your Majesty! Goodness! One of the maids cried, looking at Sepia. Why do you look so pale? Oh my! You have a fever! Sepia realized she was trembling, her skin clammy and cold. But she could not let the truth of the Emperor's weakness, or his madness, be known. His Majesty fainted for a moment in the temple. She lied quickly, shoving her own trauma aside to protect the crown. Call for the palace physician right away. Yes, Your Majesty. The servant bowed, rushing off. Demios turned to her, his expression softening into concern. He reached out a hand to touch her cheek. Sepia. Sepia flinched violently, jerking away from his touch. The memory of his hands around her throat was too fresh, too visceral. Demios froze, his hand suspended in the air. He looked at her, confusion and a flicker of hurt crossing his features. Ha ha! He let out a dry, humorless sound, seemingly trying to bridge the gap. Mine! Yes, he murmured, echoing words he shouldn't have remembered. You are mine, aren't you? Sepia stared at him, her breath hitching. Yes, Your Majesty, she whispered, lowering her gaze. I am yours. Let me take care of you until you recover, he said gently, moving to embrace her. It was a gesture of care, yet to Sepia, it felt like a trap. He pulled back slightly, studying her terrified face. The dissonance between his intent and her reaction was palpable. Why do you look like you're faced with a monster? He asked, genuinely perplexed. Sepia could not answer. She clenched her jaw, suppressing the scream that threatened to rise in her throat. Demios straightened, turning away from her to address the gathered court and the awaiting empire. His demeanor shifted instantly from the concerned husband back to the absolute ruler. Listen, everyone! He bellowed, his voice echoing off the stone walls. He looked out at the horizon, his expression grim and foreboding. This year, the Emperor proclaimed, his words sealing their fate. The Empire shall face a year of misfortune. The prophecy hung over the land like a shroud. This year, the Empire shall face a year of misfortune. The proclamation rang out through the grand halls, shocking those who heard it. A year of misfortune? It was a dire prediction. The fortune of the year ahead was always predicted as one of 5 outcomes during the sacred cleansing ceremony. A year of great fortune, the best of the 5, followed witnessing a mysterious light in the underground temple. Years of fortune and balance represented a time free of disaster for the empire. But a year of misfortune warned of a disaster that would affect the whole empire, and a year of great misfortune indicated a state of emergency, equivalent to war or calamity. Whispers of anxiety filled the corridors as the servants went about their duties. A year of misfortune, he said. It's always been a year of fortune ever since Her Majesty came here. What can this mean? Despite the fear rippling through the palace, the servants remained attentive to their mistress. You need to rest, Your Majesty. Let us return inside now. All right, she replied softly, the weight of the prophecy pressing down on her shoulders. Elsewhere, deep within the palace's archives, a frantic search was underway. How are you going to find your father's keepsake at this rate? A red-haired knight asked, looking hopelessly at the shelves. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. Roxan, the dark-haired captain, pushed his glasses up his nose, his expression weary but determined. Yes, I'm aware, but keep looking. Of course, Captain, the knight replied with a sigh. I know this approach will take forever, but I must find what my father left behind. Roxan insisted, his voice low. That is the reason I returned to the palace, after all. His mind drifted back to a solemn memory, his father's voice echoing in his ears. Listen to me closely, Roxan, his father had said, his face grave. Yes, father, Roxan had answered. One day, a black calamity will slither onto the back of a red-eyed divine beastkin, and swallow the empire whole. The warning had been terrifyingly specific. So you must find the Eye of the Wolf and its mate that I hid in the Imperial Palace. They will protect you and the Empire. Roxan's eyes narrowed as he returned to the present. Red eyes, he thought grimly. That must be Demios, the current emperor. The search continued into the night. Roxan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. Any news from the Empress's palace? No, not yet, his subordinate reported. Roxan let out a heavy breath. It's been 2 weeks since the cleansing ceremony, but I still haven't seen her. Don't worry too much, the knight offered. Since a year of misfortune has been declared, I'm sure Her Majesty has a lot on her plate. No, it's just that. Roxan gazed out the window, a look of profound longing on his face. I miss her. In her own chambers, the Empress sat at her desk, surrounded by stacks of documents. The soft light of the room did little to ease the tension in her posture as she scribbled notes with a quill. The Empire must provide greater support to the vulnerable in such times of misfortune. The poorest of our people will be most affected. At least it isn't a year of great misfortune. If that had been the case, any new business would have been banned. Suddenly, a dark memory pierced her concentration. The sound of a creaking door. The name, Sepia, a looming shadow with burning red eyes whispering, "You are mine." Her hand flew to her neck, trembling at the phantom sensation of a touch she couldn't forget. She squeezed her eyes shut. Let's not think about that again. A knock at the door startled her back to reality. Your Majesty, a servant called out. I apologize for visiting at such a late hour. The attendant entered and bowed deeply. Shall I bring him in? The Empress blinked in surprise. At this hour? Show him in, she asked, straightening in her chair. He slid a letter across the desk. This is an imperial order from the Emperor. She looked down at the paper, reading the words with growing horror. It is an order to prohibit the establishment of the charity department, Your Majesty. What? She gasped. Without wasting a moment, the Empress stormed through the palace to the Emperor's quarters. She burst into the room, her chest heaving with indignation. What brings you here in the middle of the night, Empress? Demios asked lazily. He stood in the center of the room, his long silver hair falling over a loose robe that lay open, revealing his chest. Your Majesty, she began, struggling to keep her voice steady. You are banning the establishment of the charity department? He looked at her with feigned innocence. What do you mean by that? Then, a smirk curled his lips. Oh, is that why you're here? She stepped closer, her eyes pleading. This is no small matter. You must be aware of how important charities are. You only ever come to see me for such matters, Empress. He cut in, his tone bored. With a year of misfortune ahead of us, she pressed on undeterred, we must take care of and protect our most vulnerable people. Ha! A sharp laugh escaped him. He began to clap slowly, the sound mocking in the quiet room. How touching! It's truly inspiring to see how much you care for your people. You are the ideal Empress. He's insulting me now, she realized, clenching her fists. I shall take your generosity into consideration, he said, his voice dropping as he loomed over her, and do what I can as the Emperor to ease your burden. What do you mean? She asked warily. I have decided to give Titié the entire budget you assigned for charity. The Empress stared at him, stunned. What are you saying? Impossible. The establishment of the charity department was already decided, and why would that budget go to Titié? You already have so much on your plate, he said dismissively. That I am letting Titié take care of the charity budget, that is all. Demios, she shouted, his expression hardened, his red eyes flashing. When a tempest rises, it is only natural for the weak to falter while the strong endure. She looked at him in utter disbelief. How could he say that the people's suffering is natural? How could someone like this be the leader of an empire? It would be ridiculous to spend so much money on his mistress when it could be used to save countless citizens. Well, he continued, turning away from her, I will not stop you from running the charity foundation itself. I will leave that to your discretion, Empress. I understand that you despise me, but these people are your subjects as much as they are mine, she argued, stepping toward him again. And it is the duty of the imperial family to take care of them. It is not that I despise you, Empress. But that you resent me. She grit her teeth, forcing herself to swallow her pride for the sake of her people. I swear on my title as Empress that Titié's personal budget will be finalized by this spring. She looked up at him, desperate. So please, revoke your order to transfer the charity budget to Titié. I will try my best to meet her needs with her budget, so... Suddenly, he grabbed her arm and pulled her sharply against him. I'm afraid that won't be enough to make this deal, he murmured, his face inches from hers. She gasped, her eyes wide with alarm. If you wish to get what you want, you must fulfill your duty as Empress first, he whispered, his gaze intense and predatory. If you want to make that deal, come see me in my bedroom. The sharp, rhythmic click-clack of footsteps echoed through the dim corridor, breaking the heavy silence of the night. He's right, Roxan said, his voice cutting through the shadows. He stood tall, looking down at Sepia with an unreadable expression. If you wish to get what you want, you must fulfill your duty as Empress first. The air between them grew thick with tension. He leaned in slightly, his gaze intense. If you want to make that deal, come see me in my bedroom. Sepia felt a chill run down her spine. She turned her head away sharply, unable to meet his eyes. The rejection was silent but clear. I suppose I shall take that as a no, Roxan said, his tone cooling. He straightened up, adjusting his collar. But if you come looking for me this late again, I will have to assume that you have accepted my offer. He turned and walked away, leaving Sepia standing alone in the cold hallway. Her thoughts raced, a chaotic storm of duty and morality. If I just fulfill this duty he speaks of, I can save the poor, she told herself, the weight of the empire pressing down on her shoulders. But, she paused, her breath hitching in her throat. A muttering sound escaped her lips as the reality of the situation took hold. It frightens me. A single tear dripped from her eye, followed by another. She hastily wiped at her face, trying to compose herself, but the emotions were too raw. Roxan! She gasped, realizing he hadn't fully left. He was standing there, watching her. I didn't know you were here. I was thinking of something else. This is just... She couldn't finish the sentence. The facade crumbled. Roxan stepped closer, his expression softening into something gentle. It's all right, he murmured, his voice soothing. Sepia, it's all right for you to cry. A short while later, the delicate clack of fine china settled the atmosphere in a much warmer room. Here. It's jasmine tea, Roxan said, placing a steaming cup on the table before her. Thank you, Sepia whispered, wrapping her hands around the warmth of the cup. She took a sip, the floral scent calming her frayed nerves, though her mind was still reeling. I can't believe I cried in Roxan's arms. She took another small sip, feeling the heat spread through her chest. I wonder what he'll think of me now. She glanced around the room, suddenly self-conscious. I am embarrassed to show you my cramped quarters. Roxan sat opposite her, looking at ease. No, it seems like a nice place. Sepia looked around the space. It was orderly, elegant, and devoid of unnecessary clutter. It's a neat and tidy room that suits him, she thought, stealing a glance at him. Maybe that's why. I feel so relaxed and comfortable. Roxan offered her a faint, encouraging smile. Please let me know if you are having any problems, Sepia. Whether big or small, you can tell me anything. He leaned forward slightly, emphasizing his sincerity. We are friends, after all. Sepia felt a lump form in her throat. I want to tell him everything to ease off my burden, but I can't be such a bother. She forced a smile, masking the turmoil beneath. The winter must have affected my mood. I am fine. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Sepia stared into her tea, conflicted. I should tell him that I'm fine now, and that I should get going, but... She pressed her hands together in her lap, feeling the fabric of her dress. I want to stay with Roxan. Shall we play a game, Sepia? Roxan asked, breaking the silence. She looked up, surprised. A game? It's a game where we tell each other a secret. Sepia's heart gave a sudden, hard thud in her chest. I used to play this game a lot with Demios when we were children. Roxan explained, a nostalgic look in his eyes. I wonder if it's a common thing in the Beastkin Empire. Sepia thought, her pulse quickening with nervousness. I'll start. Roxan said, not waiting for her to agree. All right. He clasped his hands together, his gaze drifting to the side. I actually lost part of my memory, and because of that, I was unable to keep my promise with my lover that I would contact her again. Sepia watched him, seeing the pain etched on his face. Are you better now? Yes, he replied softly. But it took too long for me to remember. He tightened his grip on his own hands. I feel so sorry, for my beloved. He looked back at her, his golden eyes piercing. Is it my turn now? Sepia stared down into the amber liquid of her tea, watching the ripples form as her hand trembled slightly. She took a breath. I feel scared and uncomfortable around the person I'm meant to feel closest to, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Even more so than a stranger. Roxan nodded slowly, absorbing her words without judgment. I see. Thank you, Sepia, for telling me one of your secrets. Sepia offered a small, sad smile. Thank you as well. 1 week later, the bright morning sun did little to warm the chill in the air. A grand carriage rolled into the courtyard, the click-clack of the horses' hooves echoing against the stone pavement. As Sepia stepped out, she was greeted immediately. Greetings, Your Majesty, said Viscount Elon, bowing respectfully. He was the director of the Reverend's workhouse, a goat beastkin with a dignified mustache and spectacles. Is everyone here? Sepia asked, adjusting her gloves. Yes, all 8 of the workhouse directors from each region are waiting for you inside. They entered the grand meeting hall, but the atmosphere was far from orderly. It was a cacophony of shouting and accusations. My region is in much more dire need, one director yelled, slamming a fist into his palm. What do you mean? Another shot back, her face flushed with anger. Our workhouse does not even have any water to give out tomorrow. Don't you know that my region has way more people living in poverty? A third man argued, pointing an accusatory finger. We have far too many citizens who have fallen ill. A woman cried out from the end of the table. Slam! Viscount Elon brought his hand down hard on the table, the sharp sound jolting the room into stunned silence. Lower your voices! He bellowed, his usual calm demeanor replaced by stern authority. All regions are equally important to me. So please settle down. He straightened his jacket and cleared his throat loudly. Ahem. We apologize, Your Majesty. Elon turned to Sepia, who sat at the head of the table, looking composed despite the chaos. Could you update me on the supplies? Sepia looked down at the ledger in front of her, the numbers painting a bleak picture. If we are frugal, we could last another 2 weeks or so. And the orphanage will require extra care during these times. She felt a wave of despair wash over her. This is worse than I expected, she thought. The number of those in need increases by the day, but we no longer have a budget. What shall we do, Your Majesty? Elon asked, his voice laced with worry. Sepia sighed, a heavy sound that seemed to carry the weight of the entire room. Send supplies to the orphanage as usual. Instead, pare down the number of meals provided by the workhouses. She clenched her hands in her lap. She knew there was another option, one she had been avoiding. I can solve all of this by simply going to see Demios. I've been putting this off hundreds, even thousands of times, but... She closed her eyes for a moment, steeling herself. It's time for me to make a decision. She opened her eyes and addressed the room with renewed resolve. Everyone, do not fret. I have a solution. Suddenly, a loud noise from outside interrupted her. Thud. What was that noise? Elon asked, looking toward the entrance. What? A rush of footsteps approached the doors, and they swung open with force. A group of men marched in, carrying heavy green crates on their shoulders. Did you bring these supplies? One of the directors asked, bewildered. No, not at all. Elon replied, confused. What is going on? Oh! Someone gasped as the men set the crates down with a heavy thud. The leader of the group, a man with red hair, beamed at them. Greetings, Your Majesty! Sepia stared at the soldiers, her heart skipping a beat. These men are Roxan's knights, she realized, scanning their uniforms. What are they doing here? Then, she heard a distinct, heavy step enter the room behind them. A tall figure walked through the doors, his presence commanding instant attention. Sepia's breath caught in her throat. "Roxan? Roxan?" Sepia exclaimed, staring in surprise at the man standing before her in the snowy courtyard. "What brings you here, Roxan?" Roxan adjusted his coat, his expression calm but determined. "We are here to pay our rent." "Rent?" Sepia blinked, confused. "You provided my knights with a building in the Western Palace grounds, did you not?" "Pardon? But those are accommodations for the heroes who fought for this empire," she insisted, shaking her head. "You need not pay. We are not so rude as to accept such generosity without offering anything in return," Roxan interrupted firmly. "That's right," his knights chimed in from behind him. "But still," Sepia tried to protest. Roxan leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "We should discuss this further elsewhere." As a donor and the head of the charity project, they moved into the modest interior of the storage facility she was using. Sepia looked around the cluttered room with a sigh. "I apologize. We do not have a proper space for guests." "It's all right," Roxan assured her, dismissing the concern with a wave of his hand. Sepia turned to him, her gaze sharpening. "Now, please be honest with me. What are all those supplies outside?" "They are donations," Roxan answered simply. "I am simply making a donation as a noble of the empire." "You have been accepting support from the nobles, have you not?" "That's true," she murmured, looking down. "Usually, the nobles all contribute through donations," Roxan continued. "So this is something to be welcomed, but Demios is trying to stop these charities from continuing." Sepia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. "If you help me now, Roxan, you will be in conflict with His Majesty. If that is what you are worried about. His Majesty and I already have a rift between us," Roxan revealed, his voice steady. "Though I cannot tell you the details, there is a reason His Majesty is unable to send me away from the palace too." "A rift between them?" Sepia thought, startled. "What does he mean?" Roxan took a step closer, his eyes focusing on her face. "Your hair is frozen." "Oh!" She flinched slightly as his hand reached out to gently brush the ice from her locks. "It must be because of the snow." Her heart began to pound against her ribs. Roxan smiled warmly, reaching into his coat. "I have something to give you, Sepia." "This is," she asked as he handed her a heavy envelope. "This is money I am donating. Please take a look." She opened it and gasped. "Far too much, Roxan. I do not believe you can donate too much, or too little," he countered gently. "Still, this is too much," she insisted, her hands trembling slightly holding the envelope. "This would be enough to run the charities for at least 3 years. This money includes that donated by my knights," he explained. "They will be very upset if you do not accept it, Sepia. Please take it." Sepia looked up at him, her chest tightening with emotion. "Whenever I feel like giving up, he appears just in time to help me. Is he just doing this because we are friends? I owe you a great debt," she whispered. She quickly scribbled a receipt on the desk, feeling the weight of his gaze. "In that case, would you do me a favor?" "What is it?" "I would like you to value yourself more, Sepia," he said, his voice dropping to a serious, tender tone. Sepia froze, her pen halting on the paper. Exclamation point. "And I would be happy for you to use me to that end," he finished, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "What more could I possibly ask of you?" she murmured, overwhelmed. Meanwhile, inside the opulent meeting hall of the main palace, the atmosphere was suffocating. "His Majesty looks to be in a very bad mood today," a noble whispered to his neighbor. "It's only natural," the other replied quietly. "Duke Leopold made a significant donation to a business His Majesty stopped from expanding. He even made an official statement about supporting the charities that Her Majesty is heading." "You're right," the first noble agreed. "And because he led the way, countless other nobles have stepped up to donate. Now that so many have supported the charities, no one has to be wary of the Emperor's wrath anymore. Besides," another voice chimed in, "they say the Emperor handed over the whole charity budget to his mistress. The people of the Empire are all busy badmouthing him these days." The Emperor sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of barely contained fury. He glanced sharply at the whispering officials. And so, that is it for the coming year's budget, the presenting official finished nervously. Shatter. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the silent room. Blood dripped from the Emperor's clenched fist where he had crushed his goblet. Your Majesty! The officials cried out in alarm. Meeting adjourned. Demios snarled, ignoring the blood dripping onto the table. He stormed out of the hall, his hands still bleeding, his footsteps echoing heavily against the marble floor. Suddenly, he stopped. Your Majesty, your hand! She had been walking down the corridor and stopped at the sight of him. He grabbed her arm roughly. Greetings, Your Majesty, she said, her voice turning cold and formal as she composed herself. Are you satisfied, Empress? He hissed. With what? She asked calmly. You're the one who threatened me first, he accused, his eyes wild. As much as it may be my duty as the Empress, Sepia replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. You should not have blackmailed me with the starving people of the Empire. I am referring to how you ruined Tityé's reputation in order to maintain your charities, he shouted, his grip tightening. Sepia's eyes widened slightly. Is he referring to the rumor that the budget went to Titié? I did not spread that rumor, she stated firmly. Then who else would? He spat. Who knows? She shrugged elegantly, pulling her arm from his grasp. There are plenty of people in this palace who do not approve of your mistress, Your Majesty. She adjusted her sleeve, looking bored. I am very busy at the moment, so I do not have time to spread such rumors. She turned her back on him. If you have nothing else to add, I will be going. With a sharp click-clack of her heels, she walked away, leaving the Emperor seething in the hallway. Later, at the orphanage, the mood was entirely different. Warm light filled the room where children gathered around Sepia. How are you so pretty, Your Majesty? A little girl asked with wide eyes. Yeah, you look just like a goddess, a boy added excitedly. Her Majesty smells good too. Like flowers, another child chirped. Try this, Your Majesty. It's tasty. A child held up a cookie. Thank you very much, Sepia said, taking a bite and smiling radiantly. It's tasty. I'm so glad that the children won't have to starve, she thought, watching them eat. That is what I'm happiest about. Later that evening, as the event winded down, she stood on the balcony with Roxan. The cool night air was refreshing. This is all thanks to Roxan, she said softly. Roxan turned to her. One moment. I've told you many times already, but I'd like to say this once more, she said, turning to face him fully. Thank you so much, Roxan. I haven't seen the children so happy in a long time. I am glad to be of help, he replied, his gaze soft. You have been such a great help to me as a friend, Roxan, she said earnestly. I do not know how I could ever repay you. Roxan stopped. His silhouette seemed to darken against the night sky as he looked at her. Sepia, he said, his voice low. She paused and looked back at him. Yes? He stepped closer, his eyes intense. Do you really think I am helping you simply out of friendship?